So in Esther 1:1, we see that the story begins in the Persian city of Susa, or Shuzan as well, is some translations. It's basically the capital of the Persian Empire, which is today located in western Iran. Before this, of course, you had the Babylonian Empire. Before the Persian Empire was the Babylonian Empire. And it was King Cyrus of Persia who conquered the Babylonian Empire and set up the Persian Empire. And it was the Persian Empire which ultimately grew to much larger than the Babylonian Empire was, over 127 provinces, all the way from India to Ethiopia. Now in verse 3, it tells us it was the third year of the reign of King Xerxes. Now some translations may say Ahasuerus. Ahasuerus, it's the same person. Kings often have two names. It's very common. Still to this day, kings will have more than one name. So Xerxes or Ahasuerus is the same person. And it tells us that it was the third year of his reign, which would have been 484 BC. 484 BC is the year this is talking about. So chronologically, this book actually comes in between Ezra and Nehemiah. Ezra and Nehemiah are actually quite separated by quite a few years, and Esther would fit in between those two. Ezra and Nehemiah, of course, takes place in Jerusalem, whereas Esther's taking place in Persia. So different location, but in between those two books it comes. And at this time, the king is hosting this huge feast, this huge banquet for all his friends, all his servants, and all his officials. And it tells us this banquet lasted for 6 months. 6 months of drinking and partying. I mean, I used to do a few raves back in the day, in the 90s, before I was saved, maybe from Friday to Sunday, but 6 months, that's another level. And they didn't even have Red Bull back then either. So to impress his friends, he asked his wife, Queen Vashti, to come out and dance for them, but she refused. She didn't comply. She said, no, I will not come and dance for all these drunk men. And because of that, she was removed. She was dramatically removed from her position as queen. And as I said, when you see God removing people from a position of power and replacing them, it's because he's doing something. Something's about to happen. In chapter 2, we see that a search for a new queen begins. And of course, there was many young women who came and auditioned for the role. They went through all these like beauty treatments and things like this. But it was a young Jewish girl who was actually called Hadassah. Hadassah was her real name. A lot of people assume that Esther was her real name and that Esther is a Jewish name. Esther is a Persian name.